The impact of proximity. Proximity involves how aware individuals are of the consequences of their actions, which causes them to obey authoritative figures in different ways. There are three forms of proximity. The first is your physical distance to someone. The second is how far away in time an event is. And the third is your relationship or how close you are with a person. There were three variations of Milgram's initial study. The first was a change in the physical distance between the learner and the teacher. In this variation, the teacher was put in the same room as the learner, so could see the consequences every time they gave them a shock or increased the shock voltage. The second required the teacher to force the learner's hand onto an electric shock plate. This reduced the touch proximity. The final variation didn't have the experimenter in the room. Instead, they gave the teacher instructions over the phone. This reduced the time proximity. Milgram found that all variations decreased from the initial obedience, which was 62.5%. In variation 1, obedience levels dropped to 40%. In variation 2, they dropped to 30%, and in variation 3, they dropped to 21%. A conclusion that can be drawn from the first variation is that a closer distance proximity meant the participants couldn't separate themselves from their consequences, as they could see what was happening to the learner and therefore felt more responsible, which made it easier to disobey the instructions from the authoritative figure. As the participant was physically forcing the learner's hand to inflict the shock in variation 2, it increased the responsibility they felt from their actions, and therefore a closer touch proximity reduces obedience. As the experimenter wasn't in the room in variation 3, it made it easier for the participant to do what they wanted to do, which was use a lower voltage or none at all, as they believed it was a better thing to do. This was because there was no pressure, as the authoritative figure wasn't in close proximity.